It was my 27th birthday, but it felt like any other day, empty and ignored. I sat alone in my apartment, staring at my phone, waiting for a call or message from my family. But as the hours passed, there was nothing. Then, just before sunset, I saw a post on my brother Cedric's Instagram. He was on a private yacht in Monaco, enjoying a luxury vacation. My heart sank as I saw my parents' comment beneath the photo. "Our golden child, Cedric. You deserve everything." I had spent years supporting my family financially, giving them everything I had while watching my brother get all the attention. For years, I had put my dreams on hold to support my family, contributing thousands of dollars, hoping it would go towards something we could all benefit from. Instead, I had been the one left behind, overlooked and invisible while Cedric lived a life of luxury. That was the moment I realized enough was enough. I was done being taken for granted. Kara sat on her couch, her phone still in her hand, staring at the image of Cedric's vacation in Monaco. It stung in a way that was hard to explain. Every year, her family had focused all their attention on him, the golden child. As usual, she had been ignored. Just another birthday, quietly passing by without so much as a call. Yet here was Cedric, living the life that Kara had always dreamed of. She had spent years supporting him, helping him through college, and pouring money into their family's joint account, all in the hope that it would contribute to a shared goal, buying a home. But now, as she looked at Cedric's carefree life on Instagram, something clicked. The money she had contributed, the thousands of dollars she had saved over the years, hadn't been used for a family home or any of the practical goals they had discussed. Instead, it had been spent on Cedric's lavish vacations, luxury gifts, and a lifestyle she had never been invited into. The betrayal was so sharp, so deep, that it made her feel sick, to her stomach. How had she not seen it sooner? She had trusted them all, her parents, Cedric, even the family bank account. She had believed that when the time came, they would all come together to buy a house. It had been a dream she'd held close, one that kept her motivated to keep pouring money into that account. But now, looking at Cedric's sparkling photos, she realized how naive she had been. For all her sacrifices, for all her efforts to keep the family afloat financially, she had been nothing more than a source of support for Cedric's privilege. And now, with her 27th birthday gone unnoticed, the weight of it all felt crushing. Kara's mind raced, the sting of realization settling deeper within her. She couldn't let this go on. She had always thought of herself as a dependable daughter, a reliable sibling, the one everyone turned to. But it was clear now. Her role in the family had been nothing more than that of a financial provider, a role that was expected of her without any recognition, without any appreciation. The next day, Kara couldn't shake the anger and betrayal. She had to understand where all the money had gone. After a few hours of digging through the family's joint account details, Kara found the pattern: large withdrawals marked for vacation funds, luxury purchases, and other expenses tied to Cedric's trips and lifestyle. The amount of money that had been siphoned off over the years was staggering, and with every line item, her sense of betrayal grew stronger. Cedric had used her hard-earned savings to fund his life of excess, all while Kara quietly stayed behind, covering the family's bills and dreaming of a future that would never come. It wasn't just the money that hurt, it was the realization that her parents, whom she had trusted and loved, had allowed this to happen. They had never stopped to consider how much Kara had given. They had never acknowledged her role in supporting Cedric's education, his start in life, or the sacrifices she'd made to keep them afloat. Instead, they had chosen to play favorites, putting all their hopes and resources into Cedric's success, while Kara had silently worked in the background, overlooked and unseen. The phone call with her father the evening after the discovery was the final blow. As Kara confronted him about the missing money, her father grew defensive, dismissing her concerns as overreaction and misunderstanding. "It's for the family," he tried to explain, but the words felt hollow in Kara's ears. He couldn't even bring himself to apologize for allowing Cedric's lifestyle to overshadow everything else. It was always the same. Cedric, the golden boy, always at the center of their world, while Kara was the silent, invisible one, someone who was only seen when the family needed something from her. "I've been supporting this family for years, and this is how you repay me?" Kara asked, her voice trembling with emotion. "This money was supposed to help us buy a house, to build something for all of us, not just Cedric's next vacation. Do you even realize how much I've given up to make sure you're all okay?" Her father's silence in response to her words told her everything she needed to know. He wasn't ready to acknowledge her pain, her sacrifices, or her growing resentment. He expected her to continue giving without question, without acknowledgement. But this time, Kara couldn't keep quiet. She couldn't keep pretending to be okay with the way things had been. It was time to stop letting her family take her for granted. As the call ended with no resolution, Kara felt something shift inside her, a decision that had been brewing for years. She had always thought that her sacrifices were for the greater good, that one day her family would see her worth. But now, she realized that her worth was not something that could be proven through giving and giving, expecting nothing in return. It was time for her to reclaim control of her life. Kara sat in the dim light of her apartment, reflecting on everything she had done for her family, how much she had given, how much she had sacrificed. Her heart ached with the weight of it, but deep down, she knew that reclaiming her finances and setting boundaries was the only way forward. She had always been the one to make sure everyone else was okay, but now it was time to focus on herself. She had poured her money into a family that had taken her for granted, and it was time to take it back, not just for her own peace of mind, but for her future. Taking a deep breath, Kara made a decision. She would withdraw the $118,000 she had contributed. It wasn't about punishing anyone, it was about finally putting herself first. The next step was hers to decide, and she knew it would be the hardest decision of her life. But it was a step toward her future, one that didn't involve being overshadowed or ignored. She was taking back her power, and with that decision, Kara felt a sense of liberation she hadn't felt in years. As she sat down to transfer the funds, she realized that this was not just about money, it was about reclaiming her life. It was the beginning of a new chapter. Kara sat at her desk late one evening, the soft glow of her desk lamp illuminating her laptop screen as she hesitated over the next steps. She had never been one to make rash decisions, but tonight felt different. The anger, the betrayal, the disappointment, it was all consuming. And for the first time in her life, Kara was not just feeling it, she was doing something about it. She opened the family's joint bank account, the very account she had contributed to for years, the one she believed would someday help her family buy a home, the one that had become a silent symbol of her sacrifice, her work, and her financial independence. The account where she had deposited money with the hope that, one day, her family would show the same care and concern for her as she had shown for them. It was time for the hard part, the withdrawal. Kara had done the calculations. $118,000. All of it was hers. Money she had given willingly over the years. The sum was significant, but the more Kara thought about it, the more it became clear that she had worked hard for every penny, for all the sacrifices, for all the time she had put her dreams on hold to support her parents, and for the years she had silently watched Cedric, her brother, get showered with praise while she was left to pick up the pieces. Kara felt a wave of guilt rush over her. She wasn't just withdrawing money, she was severing ties, severing the financial connection that had kept her tied to a family that had never truly seen her. She hadn't made this decision lightly, but as the money moved from the joint account into her personal account, she felt a rush of empowerment. This is it, she thought. I'm taking control of my life. The guilt was still there, lurking beneath the surface. She had always been the dependable one, the responsible daughter, the one who never let anyone down, the one who gave without asking for anything in return. And now, as she watched the number in her account increase, she wondered if this act would be seen as betrayal, but it didn't matter anymore. She had given them everything, and they had taken her for granted. Kara leaned back in her chair, staring at the computer screen for a long moment. It felt like the weight of years of neglect, of being overlooked and invisible, had been lifted off her shoulders. But it was also terrifying. This was no small step. It would change everything. Her relationship with her family, the way they saw her, and how she saw them. This wasn't just about money, it was about reclaiming her life. The next morning, Kara's phone buzzed. Her father's name flashed on the screen. Her stomach dropped. She knew what was coming. Kara, her father's voice was tight with anger, barely controlled. What did you do? Her heart raced. She had expected this moment, but now that it had arrived, the rush of emotions was overwhelming. She took a deep breath, trying to keep her composure. I withdrew the money, she said simply, her voice steady despite the turmoil swirling inside. The $118,000. There was a long silence on the other end of the line before her father exploded. Why? Why would you do this? Do you have any idea how this is going to affect the family? We've been using that money for everything, bills, emergencies, and now you've taken it all. Kara's face flushed with frustration. She knew that he would be angry, but hearing it felt like a punch to the gut. But the anger didn't affect her as much as it once would have. In fact, it only solidified her decision. She had allowed herself to be manipulated for so long, allowing them to use her as their safety net without ever showing appreciation or concern for her efforts. This time, she wasn't going to cave. "Dad," Kara said, her voice firm, "you've used that money for things that weren't part of the plan. It was supposed to help buy a house for all of us, but it hasn't. It's been used to fund Cedric's trips and gifts. For years, I've been the one who's been supporting the family. I've been giving you everything, and you've never once acknowledged it. I'm done." Her father's voice shook with frustration. "You're being unreasonable. We're your family, Kara. You can't just take the money and run. You're making a huge mistake." Kara felt a pang of guilt, but she refused to let it sway her. "I'm not running, Dad. I'm investing in myself. I'm going to law school, and that money is going toward my future, my dreams, something I've put on hold for far too long." Another silence stretched between them before her father responded, his tone colder now. "We've always supported you, Kara. How can you do this to us? You're breaking the family apart." Kara's heart ached, but her resolve didn't waver. "You've never really supported me, not in the way I needed. This isn't about breaking apart the family. It's about setting boundaries, about taking back what's mine and choosing a future for myself. I'm not going to let you guilt-trip me anymore." Her father didn't respond immediately. The line was quiet, and Kara could hear the subtle crackle of tension on the other end. Finally he spoke, his voice low and resigned. "You'll regret this." Kara shook her head, her chest tight. "I won't. I'm doing what's best for me. And if that means cutting ties with this toxic cycle, then so be it." She hung up the phone, feeling a strange sense of calm wash over her. It was done. She had made her decision, and while she knew it would hurt, she also knew that it was the right one. Over the following days, her mother reached out repeatedly, trying to convince her to return the money, but Kara remained firm in her decision. Her parents, who had once made her feel guilty for every little thing, now tried to manipulate her into giving in. They begged her to come home, to fix things, but Kara knew that nothing would change. Her mother even tried to play the emotional card, saying things like, "We just want our family to be happy again." But Kara had heard those words too many times before. The manipulations, the empty promises, they no longer had any power over her. She wasn't going to be swayed by guilt or obligation. It was time to stop being their emotional and financial crutch. She enrolled in law school shortly after. For the first time in years, Kara felt excited about her future. She was investing in herself, and the more she focused on her studies, the more she realized that she had been on autopilot for so long. Her family had kept her stuck, constantly feeding her the idea that her worth was only defined by what she could do for them. But now, she was free to define her own success. A few weeks into her studies, Kara received a message from Cedric. He apologized for taking her for granted and admitted that he hadn't fully understood how much she had sacrificed for the family. He said that he wanted to rebuild their relationship, but Kara was careful. She appreciated the apology, but she knew that the road ahead would require time and trust. For now, the most important relationship was the one she had with herself. With every passing day, Kara grew stronger. The money she had taken back wasn't just a withdrawal from a family account. It was the first step in reclaiming her own life. The weeks following her decision to withdraw the $118,000 were a whirlwind of emotions. Kara had experienced a mix of guilt, empowerment, and relief. She had finally taken control of her life, but the emotional weight of cutting ties with her family was still heavy. Sitting alone in her apartment late at night, with nothing but the soft hum of the city outside her window, Kara found herself reflecting on the long road that had led her here. As she stared out the window, watching the lights flicker across the skyline, her thoughts drifted to the years she had spent as the responsible daughter, the one who always put everyone else's needs before her own. She had been the silent pillar of her family, offering financial support, emotional stability, and selfless care. She had always believed that her sacrifices would one day be acknowledged, that her family would see her effort and repay her in the way she had hoped for. But instead, she had been overlooked and used, treated like a resource rather than a daughter. Kara knew that she had done the right thing by reclaiming her financial independence. The money was no longer just a sum, it represented everything she had given, everything that had been taken without any acknowledgement. It was a symbol of the way she had been, taken for granted. And by taking it back, she had reclaimed her voice, her agency, and her life. But the weight of the guilt still lingered. Could she really cut her family out of her life? Did she have the right to make such a harsh decision? Her parents' attempts to guilt her had only intensified in the weeks after the withdrawal. They had called, left messages, and sent texts begging her to return the money. They claimed they didn't understand why she was doing this, accusing her of breaking the family apart. Her father had even called her once, his voice filled with anger, demanding that she make amends. But each time, Kara had stood firm. No more excuses, no more empty promises. She was tired of being manipulated into giving and giving, only to receive nothing in return. Her parents had never truly valued her, at least not in the way she had hoped. Yet, as the days passed, Kara found herself questioning her decision. Could she really let go of the people who had raised her? Was this the right choice? She knew that cutting ties with her family would have consequences. There would be heartbreak, distance, and loss. But as she looked at her life now, she realized something important. Her happiness had to come first. The realization was both freeing and terrifying. Kara had spent so long living in the shadow of her family's expectations, trying to fulfill roles that had never been hers to begin with. Now, for the first time in years, she was living for herself. She was carving out her own path, free from the constraints of their demands. The decision to go to law school was not one Kara had made lightly. It was a leap into the unknown, a bold move that she had been too scared to make for years. She had always loved the idea of becoming a lawyer, but she had pushed it aside, thinking that it was selfish to pursue her dreams when her family needed her. For so long, she had put their needs first, thinking that if she sacrificed her own desires, she would eventually be rewarded with love, respect, and acknowledgement. But now, she had taken the first step towards something just for her. Law school. A new beginning. Kara dove into her studies with a passion she had never felt before. It was as if everything in her life had led up to this moment. Her textbooks became her new focus, her classes the new battlegrounds where she would prove her worth. For the first time, she was living for herself, not for anyone else's approval. She poured herself into her assignments, taking on extra work, and challenging herself in ways she had never imagined. The joy she found in learning was like a breath of fresh air, and she couldn't remember the last time she had felt so alive. Her professors took notice of her work ethic, often praising her for her insights and dedication. She was no longer the overlooked daughter. She was a student with potential, a person with her own goals and ambitions. The recognition was a small but significant shift in her mindset. For the first time in years, Kara felt like she was living in alignment with her true self. She wasn't just going through the motions for the sake of others. She was building something for herself, something that no one could take away from her. But as much as Kara loved her studies, she knew that this journey was about more than just academics. She needed to surround herself with people who understood her, people who saw her for who she truly was, not as the responsible daughter, the financial support, or the quiet giver, but as someone with her own dreams, aspirations, and voice. She needed a support system of her own making. Over the next few months, Kara started to form relationships with her classmates, a group of diverse and ambitious individuals who shared her passion for law. At first, it was a little intimidating. Kara had spent so much of her life playing the role of the quiet, dependable one that the idea of forming new connections felt foreign. But as she engaged with others in study groups, participated in discussions, and attended networking events, she began to realize how much she had been missing. One of the first people Kara connected with was Mia, a fellow law student who came from a similar background. Mia had grown up in a family that expected perfection and had struggled with setting boundaries as well. She understood Kara's fears and frustrations. They quickly became close friends, supporting each other through the stresses of law school. Mia encouraged Kara to step out of her comfort zone, to embrace the new chapter of her life fully, and to let go of the guilt that had held her back for so long. In addition to her new friendships, Kara found a mentor in Professor Harper, a seasoned attorney who took an interest in her work early on. Professor Harper's guidance was invaluable, helping Kara navigate the complex world of law and pushing her to think critically about her goals. For the first time, Kara felt that someone truly believed in her potential, not because she had been supporting them or meeting their needs, but because of her own talent and drive. Together, Mia, Professor Harper, and Kara's new circle of friends helped her to see that she was not alone. She didn't have to carry the weight of her family's expectations any longer. She could surround herself with people who appreciated her for who she was and who supported her ambitions. It was a stark contrast to the relationships she had with her family, and it made all the difference. Kara began to see herself in a new light. She was no longer the overlooked daughter, the one who had to prove her worth through sacrifice. She was a law student with potential, a woman with dreams and aspirations of her own. As the months went by, Kara's confidence grew. She still struggled with moments of guilt, particularly when her parents reached out, trying to reconcile, asking her to return home and forgive them. They sent gifts, left messages, and even tried to guilt her into coming back for family events. But Kara stood firm. She knew that no amount of guilt would change the reality of what had happened. Her family's expectations had held her hostage for too long, and it was time to put herself first. She continued to excel in her studies, finishing her first year of law school with honors. She began to envision a future where she was no longer tethered to the manipulative patterns of her past. She could now see the life she had always wanted, a life defined by her own choices, her own accomplishments. Kara's transformation wasn't just about the degree she was earning or the career she was building. It was about reclaiming her own power, her voice, and her future. For the first time, she was living for herself, making choices that would lead her to a future of fulfillment and happiness, free from the toxic family dynamics that had once held her back. As she walked across the stage at her graduation, Kara knew that the journey wasn't over. It was only just beginning. But she had already proven to herself that she could do it, that she could rise above the manipulation and find her own path. She had reclaimed her power, and with that, she was ready to face whatever came next, on her own terms. As the weeks passed, Kara's life began to settle into a new routine. Law school, once a daunting challenge, now felt like a fresh opportunity. She was driven, energized by the idea that she was building something for herself. The emotional weight of the decision to withdraw her contributions, to break free from her family's suffocating hold, had lightened, but it had not disappeared entirely. Though the relief of asserting her independence was undeniable, there were moments late at night, alone in her apartment, when doubt crept in. Was she doing the right thing? Could she truly sever ties with the people who had raised her? But those doubts would only intensify as the days wore on. Her family had been silent for a few weeks after the withdrawal, presumably letting the dust settle. But just as Kara began to feel that perhaps they were finally accepting her decision, the messages started. At first it was her mother, texting her apologetically, asking if they could talk things through. "Please, Kara, we love you," the message began. "We don't understand why this is happening, but we want to fix this. We miss you." Kara's heart sank as she read the words. She could almost hear her mother's voice, the same one that had often soothed her in the past, now tinged with confusion and hurt. It was a feeling she couldn't ignore. How could she turn her back on the woman who had given her life, despite all the ways she had been let down? And yet, Kara knew deep down that returning the money, reopening the doors to a family dynamic that had drained her for so long, was not an option. It would be a return to the same old cycle of manipulation and neglect. She couldn't and wouldn't go back. Despite the clarity she had in that moment, Kara's emotions were far from simple. The next morning, another message arrived, this time from her father, his words laden with frustration. "I just don't understand what you're doing," he wrote. "You're breaking the family apart. You're punishing us for things we can't change. We've always supported you, but this is too much. You're the one who's hurting everyone now." The guilt hit Kara like a tidal wave. It wasn't the first time her father had tried to guilt her into doing what he wanted, and it likely wouldn't be the last. But this time, the pressure felt heavier than ever. The idea of hurting her family, of driving a permanent wedge between them, made her stomach churn. She had always been the responsible one, the one who held everything together when things fell apart. But now, as she sat with her phone in her hands, tears welled up in her eyes. Was she making a terrible mistake? Was this truly worth it? She felt a sense of emptiness, as if she were standing on the precipice of a decision that could irrevocably alter her relationship with the people she had spent her entire life caring for. The financial betrayal had been one thing, but the emotional manipulation was something entirely different. And yet, Kara couldn't help but feel a pang of sorrow for her parents. Did they really not understand the depths of her pain? Did they truly not see the exhaustion she carried, the silent sacrifices, the years of being invisible? Kara spent days wrestling with the fallout. She threw herself into her studies, hoping that the busy schedule would distract her from the flood of conflicting emotions. But no matter how many cases she read, no matter how many hours she poured into her assignments, the guilt continued to gnaw at her. There were times when she couldn't shake the feeling that maybe, just maybe, her family was right, that she was being unreasonable, that she was overreacting to a situation that wasn't as dire as she had made it out to be. Late at night, when the world around her was quiet, Kara would lie awake, replaying the conversations she had with her parents. Their voices, her father's, her mother's, echoed in her mind, accusing her of being the one to hurt the family. Every word they said seemed to sting with a familiarity, a manipulative undertone that always seemed to place the blame on her. "I've always been there for you," her mother's voice whispered in her thoughts. "And this is how you repay us?" Kara sighed deeply, running a hand through her hair. No amount of guilt could change the reality of the situation. She had spent too many years sacrificing herself for their approval, for their comfort, only to be left unnoticed, unappreciated, and taken for granted. The financial betrayal was just the tip of the iceberg. The emotional neglect was what had truly worn her down, and no amount of guilt would make her return to a situation that had caused her so much pain. She thought of the years she had spent quietly supporting her family, offering everything she could, her time, her money, her emotional energy, only to watch them prioritize Cedric, her brother, at every turn. He was the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. He had been given opportunities that Kara had never received, and despite all the ways she had helped him, he remained blind to her struggles. For the first time, Kara understood that she couldn't continue living in the shadows of her family's neglect. She couldn't keep sacrificing her happiness for their comfort. She had to let go. Letting go wasn't easy, but she knew it was necessary. The turning point came one rainy afternoon when her mother called again. Kara felt a twinge of hesitation in her chest, but she picked up the phone, determined to face the conversation with strength. "Kara, we need to talk," her mother began, her voice shaky. "We've been thinking about everything, and we just don't understand why you're doing this. You're hurting us, Kara. You're hurting your father, and you're hurting Cedric. You're breaking the family apart. Please, we need you to come home." The words washed over her, a mixture of guilt and manipulation, just as they always had. But this time, Kara didn't feel the need to apologize. She didn't feel the need to explain herself. She had already made her decision, and no amount of pressure would change it. "Mom, I know this is hard to understand," Kara replied, her voice calm but resolute. "But I can't keep living this way. I can't keep giving everything to a family that doesn't see me. You've used me for years, and I've always been there for you. But now, I have to be there for myself. I've decided to go to law school, and that money, the money I withdrew, it's for my future, my dreams. I'm done being the person who sacrifices everything for everyone else. It's my turn now." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Kara could hear her mother's breath hitch, could almost feel the weight of the disappointment in her voice. But Kara held firm. She wasn't going to let guilt change her mind anymore. "I'm sorry," her mother finally said, her voice thick with emotion. "But I can't be the person you want me to be. I can't undo what's been done." "That's okay," Kara said softly. "I'm not asking you to. I'm just asking you to respect my decision." The conversation ended with a mixture of silence and sadness, but Kara felt an unexpected sense of peace. She had finally stood up for herself. She had chosen her future, her happiness, over the toxic relationship that had been holding her back for so long. For the first time in her life, Kara understood that she didn't need her family's approval to be successful or happy. The pressure to conform to their expectations, to be the person they wanted her to be, had been lifted. She was free to pursue her dreams and build the life she had always wanted, one that was hers to define. Kara wasn't sure where this journey would take her, but for the first time in a long while, she felt hopeful. The weight of guilt that had burdened her for so long had started to fade. She was ready to move forward, to stand strong in her decision, and to build a future that was truly her own. Several months had passed since Kara had made the decision to withdraw the $118,000 and take control of her life. In that time, her path had shifted dramatically. Law school was proving to be the right choice for her. She had discovered a passion for the law that had been buried beneath years of family obligation. She was thriving, And though the emotional weight of her family's betrayal still lingered in the back of her mind, she had made peace with her decision. No longer did she feel like the invisible, sacrificial daughter. She was now a woman with her own goals, her own future, and her own identity. But then, one afternoon, as she sat in the small cafe she frequented near the university, her phone buzzed. The number on the screen was unfamiliar, and she almost ignored it, but something compelled her to answer. "Kara?" The voice on the other end of the line made her pause. It was Cedric, her brother, the golden child, the one who had never once seemed to grasp the extent of her sacrifices until now, it seemed. "Cedric? What is it?" Kara asked, her voice cautious. She hadn't spoken to him since she had made her decision, not for lack of trying on his part. His calls and texts had become infrequent, and when he did reach out, it was usually to ask about their parents or to send a vague, impersonal message. But this was different. "I've been thinking a lot lately," Cedric continued, his tone uncertain. I want to apologize for how I've treated you, for taking you for granted, for never really understanding what you've been doing for the family. I realize now that I've been blind to how much you've sacrificed, and I never acknowledged that." Kara's breath caught in her throat. She had expected an apology of some kind. But hearing the words, especially from Cedric, of all people, felt surreal. After everything that had happened, after the years of feeling invisible and undervalued, hearing him admit that he hadn't understood her struggle was both validating and painful. "I'm sorry, Kara," he said again, his voice quieter now. "I really am. I was selfish. I didn't realize how much you were doing, or how much you were holding the family together. I know it's been a long time, but I hope we can talk about it. I want to make things right." Kara sat back in her chair, her mind racing. She hadn't expected this call, not in a million years. She had come to terms with the idea that her relationship with Cedric might never heal, that their differences would always keep them apart. But now, hearing his apology, she felt conflicted. Could she really move past the years of favoritism, the years of being overlooked? Could she trust him again? Before she could respond, Cedric quickly added, "I get it if you don't want to talk to me, but I'd like to at least try. I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I realize how much I've messed up. I just wanted to tell you that." For a long moment, Kara was silent. Her mind kept returning to the same thought. Was this real? Was Cedric truly apologizing for his actions, or was this just another attempt at absolution, a way to ease his own conscience without addressing the deep wounds they had created? "Kara, I've been a mess," Cedric's voice interrupted her thoughts. "I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I'd really like the chance to talk face to face, if you're willing." Kara took a deep breath. The anger, the hurt, the years of resentment still simmered beneath the surface. But somewhere in her, a spark of hope ignited. She had always believed in second chances. Wasn't that what this was? Her brother was acknowledging his mistakes, trying to make amends. The old Kara, the one who had always been the responsible one, would have forgiven him instantly, out of a sense of obligation or love. But this new Kara, the one who had reclaimed her life and her self-worth, wasn't sure if she was ready to let go of the past that easily. "I'll meet you for coffee," she said finally, her voice steady but uncertain. "But I'm not sure how this will go." The day of their meeting arrived with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. Kara arrived at the coffee shop early, her nerves on edge. She ordered a coffee, taking a seat at a small table by the window. The cafe was busy, bustling with the usual afternoon crowd, but it felt oddly quiet to her. She was deep in thought when the door opened, and she looked up to see Cedric standing in the doorway, looking, hesitant but determined. He was dressed casually in jeans and a jacket, but something about his posture was different. There was no swagger, no self-assuredness that had always been his trademark. Instead, he seemed unsure, almost like a stranger. For a moment, Kara felt a pang of sorrow. The brother she had once known, the one who had always been in the spotlight, the one who seemed to have it all, was now standing before her, vulnerable and humbled. She didn't know how to react, how to feel. Cedric approached the table, his eyes searching for hers. "Hey," he said, a little awkwardly. "It's good to see you." Kara smiled faintly but didn't say anything. She gestured for him to sit down, and as he did, they both fell into an uncomfortable silence. The weight of everything unsaid hung between them, thick and heavy. After a moment, Cedric broke the silence. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I want you to know that I'm really sorry for the way I treated you. I've had a lot of time to think about it, and I realize that I took you for granted. You've always been there for me, and I've never once acknowledged it." Kara met his eyes. For the first time, she could see the sincerity in his words. This wasn't the selfish, unaware brother she had known. This was someone who had truly reflected on his actions. "I don't know what to say," Kara replied, her voice quieter now. "You're right. You didn't see me. You didn't see what I was doing, what I was sacrificing, and that hurt. But I'm not sure that apology will fix everything. It's not just about the money, Cedric. It's about years of being invisible, of being ignored, while you got everything you wanted." "I get that," Cedric nodded. "I do. And I'm not expecting things to be the same. I want to try. I want to rebuild what we had, if you'll let me. I know I can't undo the past, but I can start by being better from here on out." Kara felt a knot in her stomach. The words were nice, but the past wasn't so easily forgotten. She wanted to believe him, but it would take time. The road to healing would be long, and trust would be hard to rebuild. Yet, somewhere deep inside, she realized that she wanted this. She wanted to try. "I don't know if I can just forgive you, Cedric," she said, her voice softer now. "But I'm willing to try. I think we can rebuild, but it's going to take time." He smiled, and for the first time in years, Kara felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they could find their way back to each other this time with clearer boundaries, more respect, and a greater understanding of each other's struggles. As they continued to talk, the awkwardness began to fade. Slowly, their conversation shifted from the painful past to more neutral topics, what they had been doing since they last spoke, how Kara was adjusting to law school, and Cedric's life after graduation. There were still moments of silence, but they were no longer uncomfortable. Instead, they felt like the necessary pauses between two people learning how to communicate in a healthier way. By the time they finished their coffee, Kara felt something inside her shift. She wasn't ready to fully trust Cedric again, but she realized that he was making an effort, a real one, and that was enough for now. He wasn't the same person he had been before. He had grown, just as she had. And in that growth, there was potential for something better, something more authentic between them. "I'm glad we talked," Kara said as they stood up to leave. "Me too," Cedric replied. "I'm going to keep trying, I promise." And for the first time, Kara believed him. The road ahead would be long, but there was a new understanding between them. One built not on the unhealthy competition and neglect of the past, but on mutual respect and the desire to move forward. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start, a fresh beginning, based on healthier boundaries and a deeper understanding of each other's struggles. As Kara walked away from the cafe, a sense of peace settled over her. Her relationship with Cedric wouldn't be easy, but it was possible, and for the first time in a long time, she was open to what the future might bring. The day Kara walked across the stage to receive her law degree felt like a momentous triumph. The weight of years of sacrifice, hard work, and emotional turmoil was symbolically lifted from her shoulders as she accepted her diploma with honor. The applause from her peers and professors echoed in the large hall, but it was the internal applause, the quiet, proud acknowledgement from herself that resonated most deeply. She had come so far, from the daughter who had been invisible, constantly overlooked by her family, to the woman standing here, a newly minted lawyer with a promising future. Kara couldn't help but reflect on her journey. The path had been far from easy, but each step had been a necessary one, each hurdle had made her stronger, each challenge had shaped her into the person she was today. As she walked off the stage, Kara couldn't help but look back at her journey, at the girl who had once been a silent giver, drowning in family expectations. She had lived her life for everyone else, her family, her parents, and Cedric. But now, she had reclaimed her life, her dreams, and most importantly, her identity. The success she had achieved wasn't the success they had envisioned for her, and that was what made it all the more meaningful. The months leading up to graduation had been filled with excitement and a sense of accomplishment. Law school had been grueling, but it had also been her escape. It was the one place where her worth wasn't defined by how much she could give to others. It was a space where her thoughts, ideas, and ambitions were her own, not influenced by family dynamics or past expectations. Kara had worked tirelessly to earn her degree, studying late into the night, sacrificing weekends, and attending every extra class and seminar that would help her hone her craft. It had all paid off when she graduated with honors. And now, as she stepped into her first job at a respected law firm, Kara could hardly believe how far she'd come. She was no longer the daughter who had been financially exploited by her family. She was a lawyer with a future she had built entirely on her own. But as proud as she was of her accomplishments, it wasn't just the title of lawyer that mattered, it was the process of getting there. The decision to choose herself, to take back control of her life, to invest in her own happiness and future, had been the real victory. Walking into her first day at the law firm, Kara felt a mix of excitement and gratitude. The offices were sleek and professional, with high ceilings and walls adorned with framed legal victories. Her colleagues greeted her with smiles, eager to get to know the newest addition to their team. She knew there would be challenges ahead, but she was more than ready. This was her dream, her hard-earned dream, and she wasn't going to let anything or anyone derail her from it. It wasn't long before her parents reached out to her again. For a while, the silence had been deafening. Kara had gone months without hearing from them directly, just the occasional text from her mother asking about her health or how her studies were going, always in a tone that felt distant, as if trying to mend the invisible rift between them. But then, a few weeks after graduation, she received a phone call from her father. The familiar, tense voice was on the other end of the line. "Kara," he began, his tone softer than it had been during their last conversation. "We've been thinking about everything that's happened, and we realize we've made mistakes. We want to apologize. We want to make things right." Kara felt a momentary pang of guilt, but she didn't allow herself to slip into old patterns. She had been here before, waiting for their acknowledgement, their apology. But this time, it felt different. She had already begun the process of healing and redefining herself. She had taken her power back, and she wasn't about to let them manipulate her into believing that their apologies could erase the years of neglect. "I appreciate that," Kara said, her voice calm but firm. "But I've spent years waiting for you to see me, to acknowledge what I've given. I can't go back to pretending that everything is fine when it hasn't been. I've made the decision to put myself first, to live for myself, and I can't undo that." Her father's voice softened further. "We didn't understand what you were going through. We were so focused on Cedric, on him being successful, that we didn't see what was happening with you. We're sorry for that." Kara paused, her thoughts swirling. The apology, though long overdue, wasn't enough to erase the years of pain. But it was a start. It wasn't the kind of reconciliation she had once hoped for, the kind where her family finally saw her worth. But it was progress. Still, Kara knew she couldn't go back to the way things were. She had to protect herself, and that meant setting firm boundaries. "I hear you, Dad, but I can't go back to what it was," Kara said, her voice steady. "I've worked hard to get to this point, and I've had to do it without relying on you or anyone else. I've learned to value myself, to define my own success, and I won't let that go. Our relationship can only move forward if it's based on mutual respect. If you're willing to see me for who I am, not just what I can give." Her father was silent for a long moment, and Kara could hear the shift in his voice. He understood now. He wasn't happy about it, but he understood. "I understand," he said finally. "We'll respect your decision, Kara, but we're always here if you want to talk." Kara ended the conversation with a heavy heart but a sense of resolution. She wasn't rejecting them out of anger anymore. She was simply choosing to move forward, on her own terms. In the weeks that followed, Kara settled into her new life as a lawyer. The challenges were constant, but so were the rewards. She worked long hours, tackling cases that required not only legal knowledge but also the ability to think strategically and creatively. The work was demanding, but she thrived on it. Each victory, no matter how small, felt like a validation of her decision to break free from her family's hold. One afternoon, after a particularly successful presentation at the firm, Kara met with Cedric for coffee. It had been a few months since their last conversation, and although their relationship was still fragile, there was a new respect between them. They both acknowledged the mistakes of the past and agreed that moving forward would require patience and understanding. Cedric had continued to make efforts to rebuild his relationship with her, and although Kara wasn't ready to forgive everything, she appreciated his willingness to change. "I'm proud of you, Kara," Cedric said, his tone sincere. "I'm really proud of everything you've accomplished." "Thanks, Cedric," Kara replied, her voice softening. "It's been a long road, but I've learned a lot. Mostly, I've learned that I don't need anyone else's approval to define my success. Cedric nodded, understanding the depth of her words. I get that now, he said quietly. And I'll do better. Kara smiled, grateful for his acknowledgement. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. As Kara sat back in her chair later that evening, reflecting on everything she had accomplished, she realized that her success was not defined by the approval or validation of others. It was hers, born out of years of hard work, determination, and the courage to choose herself over everyone else. She had rebuilt her life from the ground up, and in doing so, had created a future that was entirely her own. Her journey hadn't been easy, and there were still moments when the old guilt tried to creep in, when she questioned her choices and the toll they had taken on her relationships. But Kara now understood that success wasn't about meeting anyone else's expectations. It was about living authentically, pursuing her own dreams, and creating a life that was meaningful to her. She had already come so far, and with her newfound strength and confidence, Kara knew that she was ready for whatever the future held. She would continue to define her own path, to live her life on her terms, and to embrace the endless possibilities that awaited her. The road ahead was hers to walk, and she was ready to face it, knowing that she had the power to shape her own destiny. If you found inspiration in this journey of self-discovery and personal growth, it's time to take action. Are you still letting others define your worth? Don't wait for approval from those who may never see you for who you truly are. Take control of your own life and start defining your success on your terms. If you believe in the power of embracing your own path, hit the subscribe button right now. Don't let another day go by without committing to your future. Share this story with anyone who needs to hear it, and leave a comment below. Tell us how you're taking charge of your own journey. Remember, your success is yours to define, and no one can take that from you. So, hit subscribe, share, and comment now, because you deserve to live a life that is completely yours. Don't let fear or guilt hold you back from the life you were meant to lead.